looking at a beautiful chart a few days, in fact, yesterday, Nina Simone. I was looking at her chart. I got into some of her music on YouTube in the last 24 hours. And I was amazed at her chart, and it is a beautiful thing to see how charts, how we play them out in our lives, how astrology is important, that it's a very old tool, it's a form of psychology, and it would have been used, 500 years ago. If we go back and plus, and just, back in time, the stars would have been something that were looked at by humanity. We didn't have mobile phones, we didn't have, Wi-Fi and stuff like that. So hundreds and hundreds of years ago, people would have been looking to the stars. And if we look at, for instance, like Galileo, in the 1500s, I believe, from remembering some reading I've done in the last few weeks, Galileo worked out how the sun, because people used to believe that the sun was the center of the universe or something like that. And he worked out how the planets move through space, and how we're constantly moving, and the beauty that people looking at the stars and then attributing meaning to them have given us a tool which we can understand ourselves and know ourselves. And this is something that, the more I've looked at my own chart, I've seen the correlation of the symbolism in my own astrology chart, and particularly my own Scorpio signature. I'm not a Scorpio, but I have Scorpio rising. And it seems that Scorpio is a beautiful sign. They're all beautiful, but it's a beautiful sign for me to explore, being that I am Scorpio rising, and also that Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, so to speak. So what I'm going to do now is go to my next slide, and let's see if I can go to my next slide. Okay. So what you have here is my birth chart, and I think that's going to come on the screen in a minute. So you've got my birth chart here. So we're talking about Scorpio, and I don't know if I can see anybody in the live chat because what I'm using on my computer means that I can't see live chat going on, but I can see on my phone if anybody comments. I've got my mobile phone by my side. If anybody says anything, hopefully I'll see it come up. We'll see how that works, and it may or may not, but we'll find out. So what we've got is that we've got a birth chart. So if you have your own birth chart, or your birth chart, you'll be able to establish, or what's important to know, more to the point, that we all have Scorpio in our birth chart. That, no matter what you are, and no matter what your sun sign is, or your moon sign is, or whatever's going on in your chart, every single one of us has Scorpio in our chart, and Scorpio plays out in our charts. So what I'm going to show you as an example is that what you have is that, you see, you can see basically that I've got here, let me see, actually, I'm going to get my spotlight to make this easier for people. Okay, spotlight, brilliant. All right, so you can see a spotlight there. So what I'm showing you is that I am Scorpio rising, and I was born on the 21st of May, 1966. And I've got Scorpio rising, and it's at 27 degrees. And that's the beginning of my chart. That's the first house of my chart, and then it goes into Sagittarius. Pluto is, connected with Scorpio. And Pluto in evolutionary astrology is our soul, and it's our soul journey. It's a way of understanding the soul. And what you can also see on my chart, and if you don't have your own chart, I can guide you to where you do get a chart like this. You do need your birth time, and I'll put that link below the video. It's going to be www.astro.com. There are other sites as well, but I particularly like using this type of chart because it's easy to see the degrees and the intercepted houses and other things that are going on. So what you can do is that if you find Scorpio on your chart, you'll see what house it's in. So for instance, it's just the beginning of my first house there, Scorpio rising. But traditionally, we've got that the 8th house is Scorpio. So that 8th house there that you can see, that is still Scorpio. It's got content of Scorpio in it. So we begin to dig deep into a chart and not just say, well, I'm a sun sign, for instance, Scorpio, or I'm Scorpio rising. It's much, much deeper than that. I'm going to read to you something that I wrote a few days ago. So you can bear with me while I read it, and then I'll be going on through a few more slides. And if anybody's there and they can say hello to me, that would be really good to see if I can read. If not, I'm going to have to come back at the end to see if there's any questions. So here we go. This is about Scorpio. So Scorpio energy is where we agree with each other. We are going to be exclusive in sharing our deeper material. So when we interact on a Scorpio level, when we're interacting with another human being and we're very intimate with them, that is what Scorpio is. So we all do that. You know, we've got that in us and in our charts. So there's no separation on a chart, so to speak. And Scorpio energy is where we merge into the depths and osmosis occurs. So it's where we osmose with something. It's like, you know, there's a real connection with Scorpio. And the ruler of Scorpio is Pluto. If we look back on our own lives and we look at the memories that stay with us, like the painful memories, the loss, abandonments and betrayals, that's very Scorpio based. It's very psychology based. It's a very deep sign. All the signs are beautiful, but particularly Scorpio, this is what I'm explaining now. And I will be going through the other signs as I, get into talking about astrology, because I've been putting off talking about astrology and in a deep way, and I want to get deeper into it. So I'm going to say this again. If we look back on our lives, the memories that stay, the ones that really stay, the painful ones that we remember, or the depth, and those, and the ones that were intense, and they're basically where we have been, where something is, where we've been really connected to another human being. It's been very deep, and where we felt like there's been intensity, where we've been drowned by the intensity of emotion, and and the sword, where we soar as well, like an eagle, like through the skies. Like Scorpio is up there, like soaring, but it's also the depths. It's the really deep abyss. It's the dark stuff. And the dark stuff is actually, the stuff that hurts us is where we transform and we begin to become something else. So when something unpleasant happens in our lives, we begin to transform and we change in some, big way. And so basically with Scorpio, we got to merge is to be entwined, and we can be entwined in deep truth or deep pain. So we can really feel the deep truth that we have within ourselves, or we can feel the depth of pain. And, like the loss of a relationship or the loss of a traumatic childhood, there can be deep pain in those imprints. And that's, how Scorpio energy works. Scorpio energy is not half-hearted. And also Scorpio is about our shared resources. So the resources we share with another. So another is just not, an intimate partnership. It's where, it can be in business, it can be shared experience, the depth of shared experience. It's not superficial, it's very deep. It is what is mine is yours, and it is deep psychology, shared resources, sexual taboos, compulsions, loss, abandonment, betrayal, obsession, fears, fear of vulnerability, fear of intimacy, power, resourcefulness, secrets, manipulation, destruction, and more. So we can see there that, Scorpio is deep as we can go. And when we look at our own natal chart, which I've got mine up here on the screen now, and I am reading from my notes, so do forgive me if I'm not giving you eye contact there, but I will be back once I've read this bit. So when we look at our natal chart, we can see Scorpio plays out and how it plays out. So when I look at my own natal chart, I can begin to see, an astrologer looking at this, and I know myself, but any astrologer that understands what a chart is, and evolutionary astrology and Pluto, will understand the depth of how Pluto's played out for me in my own chart. So with my Scorpio rising, and I've also got my South Node past life, my imprints of past life in Scorpio conjunct my Neptune. And Neptune is dreams, fears, it's our hopes and wishes, and it's the fog as well, something we can't see. So, there's something that's gone on there for me in past lives that would have been, that I might have not seen something coming. I might have lost a life or something like that, but who knows? For me, I'm concentrating on my now, on this life, but it can be interesting to, when we look at the South Node and the placement, we are looking at our possible past life imprinting, which is fascinating. And if we take into account here that Pluto is also the ruler of Scorpio, which is my 12th house, which is the beginning of my first house, which is my personality. This is probably my, liking astrology and digging into the depths, and also very traumatic, painful childhood. I came into this world and in my early years, and lots of trauma and loss and abandonment and betrayals. So again, that shows in this life and past life possibly, but this life definitely I've had loss and abandonment and betrayal very early on. What you have on the other part of, if we're looking at Scorpio, the 8th house is also Scorpio based. We can't get away from it. So we've all got an 8th house in our chart. So whatever sign is going to be there, like for mine is the sign, you can see Cancer there, and you can see it's also part Leo. But the reality is that that has got Scorpio intensity in it. And this defines the way I share, and this is to do with security. So it's, it's a very deep placement. The other thing that can be seen on my chart, not moving away from Scorpio, but again, the connections, is that Chiron, Chiron, some people will pronounce it, is to do with, it's in Pisces, is to do with our wound that we come into the world with. And also, if we believe past lives, then also the wound that we need to heal. So the wound that really doesn't become completely healed in our lives. But what happens is with this Chiron is that it takes 50 to 51 years to move around the chart. So we have what's called a Chiron return at around age 50, 51. And at that point, or if not before, that's when our wound becomes the gift to the world. It's where we've been wounded, and part of our healing will be, well, the wound we give back, the wound will give us the gifts that we need to give something solid and beautiful back to humanity, which it has for me. It got me speaking on YouTube, and it got me speaking up about my own trauma and complex PTSD, for instance, to help other people. So we can, and then also I've got Saturn conjunct there on my IC. So the wound was father, authority. And then the other thing we can do with Pluto is that we can look, which is to do with Scorpio. It is Scorpio based because it is the ruler of Scorpio. Pluto in our chart, it's birth, death, taxes, taboos. It's very much Scorpio based. So if we look here, the lines are called aspects in the chart. That's the way the planets speak to each other. So what you've got here is that my Pluto is squaring my moon, and the moon is mother, and it's security, and it's our ego. And an ego has been given a bad name. The ego has been given a bad name in spirituality. The ego is basically a way of making judgments and being able to, to know what our security is. It's our security needs. It's what we need. So it's not all, it's the ego is not like a bad thing. It's got a bad rap in spirituality. So if you can see that Pluto squares my moon here, and this would have caused me a lot of hardship around security, a lot of tension around my own security, my communication and mother and stuff like that. So a lot of intensity and a lot of trauma in my chart. And the beauty of seeing our own chart is that we can begin to clean up our own pains and traumas, because it gives us a tool to objectify our lives. So again, let's go into a bit deeper on Scorpio. I'm going to keep reading a little bit more here. So when we look at a natal chart, we can see where Scorpio plays out. We all have Scorpio in our chart and in our lives. There is no separation. If you take your own chart, you can see the house and the area that Scorpio plays out in your life. And then Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, which I've said. And we all have Pluto in our chart as an example. So again, wherever Pluto is in our chart, we've got that scorpionic energy going on. And planets may be in that, so planets may be in the house of Scorpio or not. So you can see I've got 2 planets in the house of Scorpio, and also the 8th house is Scorpio, and I've got, just one, I think it's an asteroid, Lucifer is an asteroid there, so that's interesting. And then planets, so Pluto is birth, death, and where we transcend, transform, and then transmute. So it's where we transcend, transform, and transmute. So when we look at Pluto in our chart, it's what we're going to transcend. I've got Pluto in Virgo, that's generation. People who are being born now have got Pluto in Capricorn, babies being born right now, but I'll run through the generations with you as well. Then what we got, Scorpio rules the 8th house, and we all have the 8th house in our chart. And again, I've said that some charts are heavily Scorpionic and some are not. So as an example, you can see my chart, which I've said that I've got this AC, my ascendant, which is Scorpio, and we can see it on our chart. If we always remember, it's the 9 o'clock point. So if we were looking at a clock, it's 1, 2, 1, 3, no, sorry, 12, 6, 3, 6, 9. It's the 9 o'clock point on our chart. And planets move in transits. They move that way around the chart. And then the nodes move the other way. So the north node and the south node from birth, they take 18 years. I think it's about a year and a half per sign. They go the other way. So the nodes show us our life path. That's really worth knowing. So my past life is Scorpio, and my north node in this life is moving away from the Scorpio and moving into the Taurus and being grounded and removing away from the crisis of Scorpio and the loss, abandonment, and betrayal, and becoming secure within myself and living life in a very simple way. And you can see also with charts, if you begin to look, you can see very strong conjunctions there that I've got in Taurus. I've got Mercury, I've got Mars. So Mercury is our communication, the way we're thinking. It's our processing and thinking. And I do that with the Taurus mind that I do very slow and steady. I've got Mars, which is our direction. It's our sex drive. It's like our desire. So sex drive, for instance, like if we, funny term to use, but if we're attracted to somebody or we fancy somebody, we can't, conjure up that feeling. The direction of like being attracted to somebody is just that attraction. And Mars, again, my attraction to astrology, I can't help that. So Mars is the way we go about doing things. And again, my Mars is in Taurus. And then my North Node, which is this life path, is conjunct. And it's also with a weaker conjunction with my Sun. So this really amps up all of the planets when we've got conjunctions. And you can see I've got another conjunction here and another conjunction up here with Uranus. I will say for anybody, anybody born in the 60s, this Uranus-Pluto conjunction, a lot of us have that. The planets all move at different speeds, but many of us born, in the 60s, late 50s, 60s, have this conjunction, and it's quite a deep meaning, but I'm not going to go into that now. So I have Pluto on my midheaven, so that shows my MC is 20 degrees, so I've got a conjunction up there. So again, that shows what the information, how I'm giving out information in the world is in a Virgo way. I'm giving out this information in an ordered type of way. But what I'm also doing with that Pluto, which is Scorpio based, is that I'm, going deep into the depths of something. I'm sharing something. And I'm doing it in, just hitting that 10th house, sort of not on the brink of 9 and 10. I'm doing it digging deeper, which is the 9th house, which is about truth and the bigger picture. And then I'm also bringing that into my career almost slightly because of that conjunction there. Reading a bit more from my notes. And I can't see anybody chatting there, so I will come back to this, I will come off share at some point, and then look to see if anybody's got any comments and wants to talk about their own chart. And also I'm happy to look at other people's charts. If you ever wanted to come on with me, I've got the ability to share screen and bring you on, and you don't have to be on camera, but you can share screen and you'll be able to chat to me and we can talk about your chart. So it would almost be like getting a reading done for free, because currently when I do read charts, you can see below what I'm doing on an hour with me to read charts. You'll see the links below this video after I've if you just want to look, and my booking as well. But going on, so I'm explaining here that the Scorpio plays out heavily in the area of my needs and security, because my moon, my Cancer, I'm in the sign of Cancer up there, so my needs and security, again, Scorpio is playing out heavily there, trust issues and all sorts of things going on. And then have aspects to Pluto, and these are all of the aspects. So you can see I've got a square on the moon, and then I've got trines, and a trine to my, to my MC, to my nodes as well, because that's quite close. And then I've got Pluto, with a sextile there. And you've got, because that's Scorpio, again, that Scorpio energy is then also hitting my Chiron, which is my wound, loss, abandonment, betrayal, and then the authority as well. So it's beautiful to really dig in, because as we objectify, we get to a point where it's knowing ourselves. And as we know ourselves, a lot of the pain and trauma that we experience, we begin to get to a place where we see it for what it is, and then we can transmute it and we can evolve. And the whole point of evolutionary astrology is to evolve as a soul. I believe that we're all souls. Everybody's got their own idea on their belief systems. Past lives, I sort of think, well, 50-50, I should maybe say, being into astrology, that I know that 100%. I feel it in my dream states that I tap into. When I sleep, I dream every night. I tap into the depths of something and I see visuals, I see faces eye to eye. So I think the Neptune there in the 12th house, it's like, that contact with other realms and being ethereal, being out there in the ether, so to speak. It's almost like the first 45 years of my life, I really wasn't in my body. So I was operating, but I wasn't body-based, and in the sense that I didn't feel connected. Now, as I get more into my North Node in Taurus, that's to do with the earth and to being grounded and to being secure, in self and meeting my own needs and not expecting that to come from outside of me. And that's a very tough lesson for all of us, because we all want to seek being our problems or issues being solved by others outside of ourselves. Clearly we interact, that's part of the Scorpio energy, that we merge, and we need to make sure that we're, and also confrontation with Scorpio energy, that it's only through confrontation that we grow and develop. For instance, if somebody really annoys us, or we annoy them and they don't, tell us, then things will crumble. But if somebody tells us, that's really upsetting me, or I need this from you, this is one of my needs, then we can begin to sort out our problems between each other. And so confrontation, again, as human beings look at confrontation as being really scary, and a lot of things don't get resolved because people are afraid to speak up, or they're afraid to confront situations. I've certainly seen that in myself with my own childhood trauma, speaking to family members about that and not being heard, and therefore the issues do not get resolved, and that affects us as on a soul level. So I would say, as best we can, as we go through our charts as adults and we understand our own chart and understand life, we begin to resolve what we can with people. And we also have to understand that there are going to be people that we will not resonate with in life, and it's okay to leave people behind in life. Sometimes we want to be a psychologist for our partners or family members and try and figure out unresolvable problems. The other thing we have to realize is that each soul, each of us, is on this planet, on our own journey, although there's no separation and we're all together, and that we will have relationships that can be very painful or very beautiful. Once the honeymoon stage is over in all relationships, many of us will begin to find dislikes or faults with each other. So we can begin to, sort of mature, and as we get more adult about stuff, then we communicate in a different way. So reading on, sorry I can't see any chat here. I'm sure there might be some, but I will come back to the chat as I get to the end of my slides. So I've said that Pluto squares explained the Pluto square in my moon. Very hard placement. But the beauty is when I saw that, as I worked with a gentleman who's brilliant in astrology, raising vibrations, who's taught me a lot of this stuff. So when he explained to me, my chart and that Pluto squares my moon and about my trauma, it began to ease all of the trauma I'd been through, like as a child. It began to give me, have more compassion for myself and more love for myself. And that again is a process, getting rid of our inner critic, not judging ourselves, with the Virgo in Pluto's Pluto in Virgos, which is Scorpio based Pluto, you know, ruler of which we all have in our charts. Virgo is, you know, very self-critical, very hard on ourselves, sadomasochistic, and sadomasochism isn't to do, you know, people think that's to do with sex. It's to do with a way of, you know, it's whether we're dealing with painful events and, you know, we're allowing somebody to mistreat us, and that can be sadomasochistic. I'm allowing you to mistreat me, or, you know, I'm being mistreating you, and that's, you know, very Pluto Scorpio as well, when it goes into the depths of darkness in that way. So Moon square Pluto natal gives explaining that Pluto, which is Scorpio based, the Moon square Pluto natal gives an intense emotional life and compulsive behavior patterns. Dark emotions and self-destructive behaviors can cause emotional crisis through life until a certain evolutionary point is reached. Psychological self-analysis or counseling will uncover the root causes of the emotional pain buried deep in the subconscious. So a lot of the Pluto stuff, it's unconscious. It's stuff that we're not going to see. You know, it's where we're in such pain that all of us, we project our pain onto other people, or, you know, we might have been so wounded and so unloved that in childhood that we'll get into relationships and get into codependency because we want somebody else to meet our needs. And, you know, as I've been taught, that it just, people can't meet all of our needs. You know, people supply different things to us at different points in our lives. So an evolutionary leap occurs each time you become consciously aware and deal with one of the psychological issues. So for all of us, we have evolutionary leaps, and in our consciousness, and you've probably seen it in yourself, where, you know, you go through a really bad time, you hit rock bottom maybe, and then you have a big aha moment. You think, wow, okay, I get that now. I get what that pain was about. I get that loss and the abandonment and betrayal. Or I get, you know, maybe you don't get it, but maybe you get to a point of understanding, you know, how you can, you know, have compassion for yourself and resolve that in yourself. So here, the life experience gained during darker times will they help us to transform, you know, this is the truth. So a compulsive nature can be turned into perfectionism as you master certain areas of life. So it's not about being perfect, but we get better at doing life the more we look at it and the more knowledge we've got about, you know, and this is the purpose of a chart. It's like, you know, why am I here? You know, what are my needs? And we'd look at that in Venus, what your needs are. And then we look at Pluto and the polarity point, you know, so with Pluto there, I have to then go to 3 and I have to ask people lots of questions. And the polarity point is for me, and also being, you know, looking at the bigger picture. If you've got Pisces there, it's like surrendering as well. So self-control can lead to great power and influence in life. So when we get to be able to control ourselves through knowing ourselves, then we can begin to evolve, and we've got more power and influence over our own lives. We're not looking to people out there to solve our problems. Doesn't mean we don't integrate. It just means that we're operating in a totally new, different way. So through astrology, we get to know ourselves, and then we get to decondition that which no longer serves us. We cannot decondition unexplored belief systems or whatever's going on. So if we were treated badly, you know, weren't nurtured, weren't loved, you know, meet a partner, they love us, honeymoon period over, and then everything goes haywire and pear-shaped, because we've got to go into and heal the deeper inner wound. That's what we've got to do. So what I've got here as well, let's go on. So Scorpio energy, let's just see. Okay, so Scorpio energy is where we agree that with each other that we will not be, let me start again. The Scorpio energy is where we agree that with each other we are going to be exclusive in sharing deeper material. So it's like you have a lover, or you have a friend, or you have a family member, or whoever it is, and you agree, this is Scorpio energy, you agree with them that you're going to go into the deeper, you know, psychological emotions, and you're going to work on that stuff together, or not, or whatever happens, but it's going to be deep. Scorpio energy is where we merge into the depths and osmosis occur. The ruler of Scorpio is Pluto, so we know that. Scorpio energy is not half-hearted. Scorpio is about the shared resources and the compulsions, abandonments, and betrayals. And I think, you know, I've got it on my 8th house cusp, which I've already said. So what I'm going to do now is share another slide, and hopefully that's been useful. I'm going to come out of my spotlight, and how, I don't know, maybe not. Okay, right. So let's see if I got the next slide. Okay, so in astrology, the other thing you're going to do as well is, this is just going to give you a brief understanding of what, you know, each planet and how it plays out in us. And this is really basic stuff. Don't take it like this is just what it means. It's really deep, deep stuff. So the sun is I am. It's like the will. It's like our will. So your sun sign is your will. It's just who you are. The moon is what you feel. It's your ego. It's your nurturing. It's your needs. And the ruler of the moon, actually, let's do this. The sun, and the ruler of the sun is, the sun rules Leo. That's the way. The sun rules Leo. The moon is the ruler of Cancer in our chart, and in the 4th house. We've got Mercury there, and it rules the 3rd house, Gemini. And Mars, let me get this. Mars is to do with our desire. So I act. It's like, you know, you just want to do something. You've got it's a deep, in-depth desire in us. We can't help it. Like I'm doing this video now, it's like I need to do this. It's like I'm acting. I'm not acting, but I'm doing what I want to do. It's part of it. And Mars is to do with Aries in the chart. So it's the 1st house. Venus is Taurus, 2nd house, and also Libra. And it's our needs. It's I need, what I need, our inner voice. We've got Chiron is the wounded healer. It's the wound that we've come in with, or that we have, and that we need to heal. But it won't be healed. It will be something that's going to help us grow, and then it becomes the gift of the world. So, but it needs to be healed or understood. And then we've got Jupiter. It's our expansion, where we grow. We've got Saturn, which is our teacher. It's where I achieve. But Saturn's going to put those blocks on when we want to go too far ahead of the game. It's like, you know, maybe an example would be I watched something on Cher yesterday. I was looking at her chart yesterday, Cher, the singer, and I heard a story where she was 13 years old and she was driving her mother's car on the boulevard without her knowing, and she got arrested for that. And that was quite interesting, that how we've got I don't know why I've said, so Saturn, yeah. So Saturn, it's like, you know, Saturn, so she got arrested. So Saturn comes along and says, hey, you know, you're not doing that now. And that's different examples we can use. Saturn, and Saturn rules Capricorn. We've got Neptune, which is our dreams. It's the totality of all of us. It's the bigger dream. It's the ether. It's out there. It's like, you know, it's osmosis. It's Pisces as well. And Uranus is Aquarius. It's to do with Aquarius. And Uranus is where we evolve, and it's our shocks. It's trauma. We've got Pluto, which is empowering, but it can also, Pluto can do, you know, it's like where it will take things away from us as well. I've got currently Pluto transiting my 2nd house, and it's to do with my values and my resources. And we've got a conjunction going on right now, which is Saturn and Pluto conjuncting with the South Node past life, and North Node is in Cancer. And those planets on January 2020 become conjunct. And that is, we're up for big changes in humanity. You know, all of this messing around in, you know, I'm not political on any level. I don't vote, and I haven't watched television since 2012, so I don't know what the hell's going on, but I see in news feeds things that roughly give me an idea. But I would say, you know, the power play in society, and the, you know, where people abuse power as well. So this is really, Pluto in Capricorn is, you know, is waking us up. It's a wonderful thing, but it's, you know, it's hard. You know, it's like being a child, like Saturn, you know, you're time to clean up your room. It's like, or such like, you know, you can't have what you want unless we do the work. We have to do the work in humanity, and also with regard to, you know, cleaning up the oceans, for instance, all of the plastics that we're all stupidly, you know, it's not that, I'm not saying we're all stupid, but we're just, you know, we were sold the idea of bottled water and plastics, and now we're just inundated and fishes and wildlife are being destroyed, and as a result of such things. And something I'll give you, actually, this is going on, somebody that I saw a wildlife photographer talk, somebody who looked for photographs wildlife as well. They were talking about the balloons, how, you know, when we let a balloon go in the sky, that, you know, that can harm a bird or kill an animal, or, you know, they're swallowing the plastic. So, you know, we're getting to a point where we're waking up, we're saying, oh, well, balloons, maybe they're not such a good idea, you know. And I feel for the people that make the balloons, because, you know, in the years to come, we probably won't be using them, for instance, unless they're, you know, ecologically friendly and don't hurt any animals and such like. All right, so I went off on a tangent there, but the North Node is this life. The North Node is where we're walking into. What are we walking into in this life? It's about, you know, it's good to know that in astrology on our chart. And the South Node is past life. So my North Node, when I was showing you my chart, was, you know, it's in Taurus, and my South Node is in Scorpio. And so I've got to, you know, stop any manipulation and things like that. And I've got to work toward being, you know, secure in myself. And then my rising sign, and whatever your rising sign is, you'll see it on your chart. If you have your time of birth in astrology, it's very important you have your time of birth. So this is the way others see us, but we're really, Simon Forster, who's taught me a lot of this, the last few years, I've had many sessions with, was explaining in a video a few weeks ago that the rising sign, we're looking to the DC, we're looking opposite, because that's what people are going to see in us, rather than, you know, that rising sign, they're going to see more of our DC, which my descending sign is Taurus, so people are going to see me as being slow and steady, but my psyche is that Scorpio, where I go into the depth and the abyss and the psychological stuff. Very much so. I'm reading all of the time, and quite deep material. And next slide. Okay, so Carl Gustav Jung said, if nobody knows that name, Carl Jung, some people do, some don't. People have generally heard of Freud, and Freud was a psychoanalysis, and Carl Jung was 20 years younger than Freud, and Freud had a particular belief system, and Jung really believed in the spirit and the soul. So that's the connection there, and so that you know who I'm referring to with Carl Gustav Jung. He has beautiful material that's worth checking out on YouTube and on Facebook. There's not Facebook so much, there's a few groups on Facebook, but very deep material. And there is no coming to consciousness without pain, and that is Pluto and Scorpio. Next, I think I can read this here. We've got the natal chart. I like this. This looks like a picture of a planet, and you know, it's a beautiful representation of a planet, actually, what would be for all of us like our dream, our Neptunian dreams of what, you know, we want for each other. And the natal chart is our total potential of what the individual has been and can become. Transits and progressions and solar returns correlate to the development and timing of our life events. Your transits are going to show your life events and timings. And we will experience or manifest various dynamics at certain times because we are ready, So we can't force, like the North Node, we can't force it. We might say, I should be following my North Node. I'm not, you know, I want to be over there. I want to be, you know, making loads of money, or I want a relationship, or I want to be traveling, or whatever it is. You know, we cannot force our North Node. You know, Saturn keeps us sort of reined in. We've got to do our work. You know, the rewards in life are through our wisdom and knowledge and time, which is also Saturn to do with time. So we will experience or manifest various dynamics at certain times because we are ready in a karmic or evolutionary sense to deal with these issues or dynamics. Clearly, what we are working with is an evolutionary process experienced in two essential ways. So we can have with Pluto, we got again, Scorpio comes into this for all of us, cataclysmic evolution, which is Scorpio as well, Pluto. So something we would say cataclysmic is something not nice happening for us. You know, a loss of something, a loss of a relationship, the death of somebody, you know, an illness, you you know, loss of a business. There's so many things, relationship. So that it can be cataclysmic, or it can be, our evolution can be slow and steady, like we can be plodding along, we're going on our way. And with Pluto, with respect to the evolutionary process, more than any other planet, seems to prepare the individual for the necessary changes to come. So Pluto takes 245 years to move around an astrology chart. So I've got a 9th house Pluto, and I'm 53 now. I was born in 1966, and Pluto is in my 2nd house. That gives you an example. The sun takes a year to go around a chart, but the moon takes 28 days as an example. So it's a slow moving planet. Herein lies the key. Choices can be made that will determine the intensity and quality of the necessary karmic and evolutionary events themselves. And that, if you buy the Pluto book, it's Jeff Wolf Green, Pluto Volume 1. Look on Amazon for that. I'll put the link below, and that's on page 305. Next, we've got here. So if we look at the generations, you know, so I like this picture here. I found it on Google some time ago. So what you've got, and the Pluto generations are, for instance, I was born on the 21st of May 1966, okay? So I am, look here, you can see with my pointer, Pluto in Virgo, 1956 to 1972. So anybody born in that period, you need to check the dates carefully if you're looking at this. Don't just assume that if you're in 1972, there are retrogrades that go on, you know, so you need to check your date, and you'll see it on your chart. If you've got a little R by Pluto on your chart, that means that Pluto was retrograde, okay? And that means that we deal with Pluto in a different way. So I'm more internal, sort of implode or explode internally with my Pluto. I experience it more inwardly because it was retrograde when I was born, for me, when I was born. And people that haven't got it retrograde are going to experience it outwardly, like, you know, things happening, not exact, but an example. So anybody born Pluto in Cancer 1914 to 1939, with Pluto in Cancer, you know, people who've got the 60s, people born in the 1937 to 1958 would have been Pluto in Leo. So for instance, a lot of people my age now who are 50, for instance, have parents who are Pluto in Leo parents, generally speaking. And that generation, the reason I use this picture is because this is a picture of somebody being bound and they're asleep. You know, she's sleeping, she's resting or sleeping. And each generation, there's evolutionary awakenings going on. And how it plays out is by the signs. So Pluto in Cancer, you know, I think the First World War, Pluto in Leo, you've got the Second World War, Pluto in Virgo, we've got the 60s, we have, you know, where people were doing Woodstock and they were doing drugs and they were free love. And the interesting thing from all of that free love, all of the people that gave birth to children in the 60s, and they had the pill and contraception, you know, in the beginning of the 70s, psychedelics. What we've got there in reality is that, you know, a lot of people my age now, I know so many people that have chosen not to get married, not have children, you know, feel deeply wounded because the parents of that period, not all of them, many of them would have been, you know, quite out of it, maybe off their faces on drugs and partying. And the same with, you know, the generations that would have, you know, later would have been doing psychedelics. I mean, can you imagine doing psychedelics and having, you know, you've got children in the house? I mean, you know, a nightmare for those, the future generations, like, you know, the generations in the 60s, myself and other people I know, many women I know my age who've not had children, you know, and have no, you know, just for many reasons, like very sensible reasons as well. Pluto's in Virgos, and Pluto's and Virgos are about being of service and making changes. And this is where, you know, we're standing up now and looking at governments and, you know, really seeing things. And then we've got the Pluto in Libras I don't know enough about. I haven't done enough study in that, but Pluto in Scorpio generation, 1983 to 1995, Pluto in Sagittarius, and then babies now, anybody that, if you've got a child and they're, you know, like 5 years old or whatever they are, if they were born in 2008 and until 2024, they are going to be Pluto in Capricorn. So it's worth understanding the generations. And when you look at your chart, you're also going to be looking at, wait, the house your Pluto is in. I'm 9th house Pluto. on my MC, but I'm Pluto in Virgo, so I'm looking at both parts of Pluto there. So next slide. So beautiful flower there, like fresh and blooming and lovely. But this is the thing I'd say that Carl Jung says here, the most intense of conflicts, if overcome, the most intense of conflicts, which we all have in, if overcome, leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed. It is just these intense conflicts and their conflagration which are needed to produce valuable and lasting results. We can see now with certain things that are going on in the world, you know, with politics, with the use of plastics, you know, things like trafficking, the Me Too movement, all of these things are where we're having intense conflicts, but we're doing it for a better world. And every single one of us alive, every soul is responsible and has a play in what's going on. So, you know, even if we're just, you know, we're sort of like excluding ourselves from the world and we're online or whatever we're doing, we're not really separate to anything or anybody. That there is no separation. We're all having an effect on each other at some level, be it for better or for worse. So we really, you know, the more conscious we become, the more conscious we become. And the more conscious we become, then we look at our part. Next. Okay, this is I think what I'm going to do with this, because I've been going on a bit, I'm going to just show these slides so anybody can see these. This is just quite a helpful list that you can stop this video and on the playback, but it's normal, safe wants and needs to wish and hope for, to cultivate with mental, spiritual and emotional energy. So I made a list there. What I'll do is below this video, so I can, you know, I want to look to see if anybody's chatting with me. I'll leave this list. I'll post it in the comments or below the video. So it's, for instance, you know, I want to learn to become the best possible friend to myself. You know, we're going to need, as we go through these massive changes that's going on in society, we need tools for ourselves, because so many of us are suffering in silence. And, you know, we can be quite okay when we're at work and we're doing our work or we're doing something we love or reading a book, but we're having, a lot of us feeling intense stuff. It's very intense in this world. It's very intense time for all of us. So anybody that has any intensity, because we have the habit as human beings to not discuss the intensity and the fears and the worries that we're going through. And this is another reason, you know, in the astrology community, the more we get to know each other, you know, in groups or whatever, and we dig deep into this stuff and objectify what's going on in our lives and ask for the help we need, then we can begin to evolve and life can get better. We need to be able to verbally ventilate. This is another one here, number 8. I want increasing freedom from toxic shame, for instance. You know, toxic shame is something that's been given to us, you know, being passed down to the generations, and that needs to go. And also I want increasingly freedom from unnecessary fear, because a lot of our fears are not, you know, hold no reality. Our biggest fear, maybe Scorpionic Pluto, is that we're going to die. And absolutely, every single one of us is going to go through that process. It's happening continuously, cycles of life. So if we can, you know, it's a bit of a scary one for people to talk about, but when we begin to objectify what that means in our lives and we get over our anxiety, fear and panic attacks in general, you know, and it hits you at a particular point in your life as well. You know, you know, when I was in my 40s, I didn't particularly think about death and dying, but, you know, at 53, I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, what do I want with my life? I've got, you know, if I'm lucky, I've got another 20 years on this planet. But again, that's thinking I could have 10. I mean, who knows? We don't know. So it's really worth working on ourselves and looking at our chart to speed up our own evolution. And I do read charts, and you can see how you can get that from me below. And I record sessions like this on camera, so you know that if you need help to objectify your life, that is what astrology is. It's not about, you know, am I going to meet the most, you know, amazing man and get married and win the lottery? I mean, that is just consensus. You know, that's just another planet. I'm not on that planet, that one, in astrology. Again, the list goes on, and I will leave that below the video. And then positive self-imaging is a powerful adjunct to thought substitution. So we can begin to think, you know, positive self-imaging, like imaging what we, you know, want for ourselves in a good way and working towards that. We can learn to short circuit the perfectionist and fear-mongering process of the inner critic. The inner critic has to go. It's been given to us generally by society, by parents that were maybe abusive at schools, you know, telling us, oh, you're not good enough, or you're stupid, or you'll never amount to much. I heard that as a child often from my parenting that I had, you know, and all sorts of ghastly things. But we can reclaim our power. We can empower ourselves. The inner critic is not generally our voice. You know, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not this enough, I'm, you know, there is a depth of inner self-love that we can access. There's a beautiful inner world that we can access. So, invoking images of past successes, where we've been successful in the past accomplishments. Go back, look at them. You know, when I passed my driving license, you know, when I got my driving license when I was 17, first time I stood up for myself and said no to somebody. You know, we've got many successes we've had in life. So if we're in low moments, we can look back and say, or write a list of our success points. You know, loving places, loving people, pictures of safe and loving places and friends. We've all got loving friends that we can think of, like we can think of a loving friend and it will just put us in a different mood. But also no spiritual bypassing. In my view, spiritual bypassing that says the terminology, let it go, that is out the window from my perspective. This is not humane to do to people who've been through traumas and such as well. You can use guided meditations. I'm not really into those, but people can, to demonstrate and reinforce your positive imagery substitution. Next slide. Have I got any slides? Oh, let me see. Oh, no. No, I didn't mean to do that. Let me see. Share screen. No, I've lost myself now. This is good. Right, what I'm going to do is go back to the meeting. I don't know what you can see there. I think you might have lost me. But anyway, I'm going to stop share. Somehow, back to screen. Oh, you can see me. Okay. Right, so I'm stopping sharing. So I think you can see me now or not, or I'm showing you all sorts of different things. Back to my screen, stop share. Right, here I am. Okay, so do I have anybody chatting to me or not? Have I been speaking to myself? No? Okay, so whoever's been watching, I really thank whoever's been watching. I hope that I've not off. I think I'm still, yeah, I'm still on the stream. So has anybody got any questions? If anybody's still watching, I'd be interested to know if anybody's got Scorpio in their chart. You know, do you know where your Pluto is? Have you ever looked at your astrology chart? Stuff like that. Or somebody can just say hello to me to make me feel at home in the world, if you want. If not, that's okay too. But I can't see who's watching in these things. All I can see is that I've got 6 on my, and hopefully the chat is working. I'm assuming that it is. Let me see. Okay. So there you go. So I think, anyway, that's it. So if you want help with your own chart, you can, you'd be able to contact me with any of the details below. And then I think that's it for today. I'm sorry, I lost myself there because I came on, changed my screen and got all lost for a minute. But that's really good stuff. And thanks for whoever stayed with me on this. And if you've got any questions, then you're going to be able to, you know, either question in the message box below, or you can come over to me on Facebook. I have a ladies group for people that have got anxiety and complex PTSD issues for ladies. And then I do my chart readings, and I've got other stuff that goes on as well that I'm into. I share a lot on CPTSD in my videos. So there you go. Hope that's useful. I don't know if anybody's watching that was into astrology, or if you haven't looked at your own chart, if you've got your birth time, you're going to be digging into a beautiful gold mine. So if you know, I'll put the link below. That's it. I'm going to go. That's it. Have a lovely rest of the day wherever you are. I'm in London. Wherever you are, have a good one. Take care.